Hey there, welcome back to another review, this time of the 2016 horror sequel, The Conjuring 2, which is also known as Conjuring 2, The Enfield Poltergeist. I just like to call it The Conjuring 2. That's pretty much what it says on the title and on the poster. And this film is directed by James Wan, who returned to direct the sequel. He directed the first film, and he was offered what is considered a life-altering amount of money to direct Fast 8, but he turned the opportunity down to direct The Conjuring 2. I honestly think he made the right choice because I his direction in Fast 7 or Furious 7, I really don't think was that great. He's much better of a director for this type of movie. His directing in the action genre just was pretty choppy, and I don't know, it just didn't really work very well, at least for me personally. So I'm actually glad he chose to just direct this instead. I was looking forward to this because, as you already know, I'm a big fan of The Conjuring, and I would say I definitely liked The Conjuring 2. I think it's one of the better horror sequels out there, but I really wouldn't say I loved this movie. I didn't love it like I did the first film. This was, let's just say, it was an above average entertaining sequel for me, but it was like a tale of two halves. The first half is kind of boring and slow, and there isn't much that goes on except for sequences with the Warrens. And then when the Warrens finally arrive in England in the last hour or so of the film, then the movie becomes entertaining to me. It's thrilling, it's fun, and I think it's a lot scarier too, because I think with the Warrens there's more at stake, because as well as the actors and actresses perform their roles who played the family, the new family in this, there's just something about them that just wasn't as engaging for me as the family was in The Conjuring. Now this film has James Wan helped with the screenplay, as well as the Chad and Carrie Hayes who worked on the first film. David Leslie Johnson also contributed to the screenplay. I think the script could have used some even more polish. I really do. I think it could have been cut. I think more scenes with the Warrens should have been added into the first half of the film. I think the whole first half of the movie should. I think the whole film should have focused on them and the British family in Enfield should have been like the secondary plot of the movie. But the way that they have it structured is you open up with a prologue, just like the first film did, but this time with the Amityville case. So they're in Amityville. They're in the Amityville house and on Long Island, and it's a well shot prologue, but I don't know. It just didn't really grab me that much. Probably because I've seen a million fucking Amityville movies. I mean, there's not really a million of them, but there's a lot. And I've seen pretty much every single one of them. So Amityville was just kind of already old to me by that time. I know a friend of mine was thinking that it would have been better if this is an Amityville version of The Conjuring. You know, The Conjuring 2, the Warrens go into the Amityville horror house. And I respectfully disagree because there's been like 12 or 13 Amityville films already. I really don't see how it would be any different. I think it was actually a good idea to take and do the Enfield Poltergeist story, but um, I just think the screenplay could have been a little bit tighter, so to speak. Um, the most of the cast returned. The At least the cast, the Warrens, of course. Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson return as Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're the strong point of the film. They carry the movie, if you ask me. Um, the rest of the actors and actresses they do fine. I mean, Frances O'Connor as Peggy Hodgson, Madison Wolfe as Janet, Simon McBurney as Maurice Gross. I definitely liked him. Franka Potente as Anita Gregory. Lauren Esposito as Margaret Hodgson. Patrick McAuley as Johnny Hodgson. Benjamin Haigh as Billy Hodgson. Um, so they all did a solid job with the performances. It just, it just, they just weren't really, I guess the way that they were written, maybe the personalities weren't as fun. I just thought the family in the first film, there was just something to them that was just, they were just a little bit more fun to me, and a little bit more interesting. They did their job all right. It just for some reason I just didn't find myself caring for this family as much as I did about for the parents in The Conjuring. And that really affects the whole first half of the film, because the whole first half of the film pretty much focuses on this family. And I wasn't really that interested in them, or really that intrigued in their story. So yeah, it just kind of. And I think the thing is too, it does suffer from deja vu, especially in the first half. It feels like a pale imitation of the first movie, right down to certain specific ways that certain specific scares the film tries to give you. Um, yeah, it's kind of hard not to feel deja vu, since it's another film centering around the Warrens trying to help a family deal with ghost and demonic possession. Especially the demonic possession angle. I honestly wish they didn't do that. I wish it was just a straightforward poltergeist ghost story, not the demonic possession angle, because that, when the demon, or when Bill Wilkins speaks to the little girl, it just felt like been there, done that. It felt like an Exorcist wannabe. And the first film had demonic possession, but they saved it towards the end. And the way that they approached it made it seem a little bit something. It seemed made it. They put a new spin on an old concept, at least for me personally. This is just kind of the same old shit you've seen a million times. Little girl gets possessed by some spirit, and spirit speaks through her, and he's a nuisance. And then, of course, but then they do have a pretty clever way of tying this new demon nun into the whole proceedings. But it just is this kind of an uneven script. The music by Joseph Bishara was good here, but I don't know. The best thing about it was he reused the family theme from the first movie at the end credits, at the end of the film, in like the last few sequences. The other bits of the score, they worked for the movie, but they weren't particularly memorable. The cinematography by Don Burgess is pretty good. The direction by James Wan was fantastic. Just like the first film, he does a great job setting up his shots. He really, I didn't really mention this in my other review, when I reviewed The Conjuring, but I wanted to make sure I mentioned it here. James Wan's direction is so full of life and so full of energy. The way that he goes about putting together his shots is really astonishing. He manages to have all these different sort of camera pans and all these different kinds of camera movements. He really, really does know how to take a video camera, to take a camera, and really put his own unique stamp on the film with the way that he sets up his shots. And so, absolutely, the film looks great. The direction is great. Um, some aspects of the plot I don't mind. I like the idea of maybe of going across the pond, going to London, but I don't know what it was about the first half. I think the part of it is it didn't build suspense. It didn't build suspense like the first film did. It's like the writers and James Wan forgot what made the first film so tense and so suspenseful and so scary. They resorted to jack-in-the-box scares. They resorted to jump scares. They resorted to blowing their wad early. It was really disappointing, the whole first half of the film. I mean, literally one of the scares is one of the younger kids, the younger brother. He goes in and looks in his tent at night, this little teepee of sorts where he keeps his toys in, which reminded me of The Darkness, because the autistic kid also liked to hang out in a tent and keep his toys in there. And so you had this kid goes in the tent, and then literally, this is its scare. The ghost of Bill Wilkins or whatever goes, "Boo!" That's literally what, and I was just like, that's just lame. And it might as well just went boo, and it would have just been as lame and as ineffective. The Amityville prologue wasn't really that creepy to me. It was well shot and well edited. It just, I've seen that done a million times with the Ronald DeFeo thing where he's shooting people and so on. It was nice to see the little boy on the staircase shot, which was an infamous actual still photo that they took in the Amityville house. Um, I remember seeing that in the documentary My Amityville Horror, which I do recommend that. That's actually a pretty good documentary. I thought that was actually scarier than the Amityville prologue. Um, and after the prologue, they do the cool opening credits thing, where where the credits scroll up. They did that for the first film too. I just forgot to mention that in my other review. I wanted to, but it just slipped my head. It just slipped. It just did not pop in there. So yeah, the whole first half, I mean, Bill Wilkins just he doesn't have any subtlety, and it's just not scary. The whole thing with the remote, it just goes whoa, it's just like this is my house, it's just really a little bit too on the head, on the nose for me. Just a little bit too heavy-handed in terms of its handling of its scares, especially in the first half. They even had a scene that literally felt it's just a scene from the first movie. The girls are in the bedroom, they see something behind the door. That was exactly the same as the first film. So that was definitely disappointing. Uh the most creepiest aspect of the first half, and the one thing that really got me interested, was when Vera Farmiga, Lorraine Warren, was falling asleep, and she saw the demon nun. And that was actually a really well shot sequence. The whole thing with the painting, where the shadows of the demon nun is, floating across the wall, and then it stops right underneath the painting, which Patrick Wilson did. He painted this demon nun that he saw in his dreams, and then the painting starts floating towards Vera Farmiga, and then it like crashes, and I thought, it comes to life kind of thing, because it becomes the face of the demon nun, and I thought that was a pretty effective sequence. I thought that was pretty creepy, and that was a really well shot sequence, and that was like the best part of the first half, that moment. Because I really kind of don't even really remember much of the first half that really stood out to me. Just stuff that stood out to me because it was lame. The film did a good job with it just, yeah, it was well shot, it was well directed, but the whole first half was just missing something. It was missing the Warrens, who I truly believe are the heart of this film, and it was missing genuine scares. It felt like it was Insidious Part 4, and I just really didn't care for that. The Conjuring didn't really feel like Insidious. It didn't feel like it was just another Insidious movie. Throwing in the Demon Nun, which I admit is a visually arresting image with its yellow eyes and so on, but they kind of blow it because they show the nun too much, and it looks like something from Insidious. So then you get to the whole second half of the film, which I really, really like. I really enjoy the second half of the movie. The Warrens are called in to go to England, Enfield, to see if they can to investigate, to see if this is a case that's worth the Catholic Church getting involved, and so on. They had some, and I didn't like this about the script. They had to explain what it was that Lorraine saw that made her lock herself in a room for days, and it was the demon nun, and it was an image of her husband dying. And I was like, you didn't really need to do that. You should have just left that alone. I like the fact that we didn't know what it was that scared her so much, but the sequel had to explain it for some reason and connect the dots, and it even connected the dots in places that didn't make any sense, like the demon nun showing up in Amityville. It was just unnecessary. It just felt like it was kind of just, we need to connect the dots for the dumb people in the audience. It was just, not everyone who's seeing the film is dumb. I'm just saying, it just felt like it felt unnecessary explanations. Um, that ruined the mystique of the first film at the particular moment where she says she saw something that scared her so badly. They should have just left that alone and just said, I saw that again. And that's it. And that's why I don't want to get involved. Promise we won't get involved. And so they go in, and she's like, well, I don't really want to go. And then there's a nice line of dialogue that Ed has where he's like, we don't run away from fights. I like that. So they go in, and they go to England, and they start investigating, and that's when the film picks up, because now the spirit's even more restless because the Warrens are there. You have some nice little, it feels like a Conjuring 2. It feels like a direct sequel to the first movie. Has a nice heart to it. The scene where he's singing an Elvis song to the kids, I really liked. That's actually Patrick Wilson singing as well. Where he's like, and I can't help falling in love with you. So I really liked that moment. And it was a nice calm before the storm, so to speak. There was a cool scene where the basement, the laundry room is flooded, and Patrick Wilson goes in and tries to fix it, and the ghost shows up there in the water, and it was a nice little tense sequence. And it builds up to a pretty explosive, crazy finale. That has a nice little twist and turn in there with the idea that maybe this is just a thing that the little girl was just faking. She was caught on camera, so the skeptics are like, that's it, that's proof that this is just a bunch of bullshit, and the Warrens then leave, and although there's a lot of stuff that they saw that, come on, you can't really believe that just one incident where the girl was faking it, which was the damage in the kitchen, equals that everything is fake. You heard a voice speak through her lips when she had water in her mouth. But the thing is, the demon did the Bill Wilkins, sorry for that little freeze up there. I don't know what that was. Maybe it was my name is Bill Wilkins. Maybe it was Bill Wilkins who died in this chair or whatever and got into my webcam here. Uh, but But yeah, you had this so it looks like she faked everything, so the Warrens leave. And I really like this moment where they're on the train or something, ready to, get to the airport and fly back home. And I really like this moment where Patrick Wilson, Ed, has this like revelation where he's like, wait a second. That he after these these audio tapes that they recorded, they fell on the floor, marking like an X pattern. And he has like this brain fart, and he's like, "What I need? Set them up. Set these tapes up." And he finds a way because he realizes that his wife needs to know what the name of the demon is in order to defeat it. And he finds a way. He plays them simultaneously, and that these audio tapes, and that ends up revealing the clue that they need, revealing that it wasn't really Bill Wilkins who's doing all of this. He's being forced to do this by something else. And so then that's when they go back, decide to help out. The girl's already been possessed and causing all kinds of crazy shit to happen. And then there's a nice little tense moment, where Patrick Wilson decides to go in the house himself and try to save the girl. But his wife, Lorraine's like, no, because I saw the vision that you're going to die. Don't do this. Don't go in there without me, Ed. And the performances by Vera and Patrick, I thought were really great. They have great chemistry with each other, just like they did in the first film. You buy that they love each other, and so the moment when she's behind the door screaming Ed's name while he's going around the house and gets burned in the face by steam, it's a really effective moment because you really want them to make it out of this film alive and well. You don't want either one of them to die. This is where the film has suspense because I care about these characters, not so much about the family in this. So, but then it builds up to a really it's a very disappointing climax. It really is. It's like you're like woo yeah, you're like full chub and then like that's really what it kind of is like with this climax. It's a pretty weak pretty weak hand job. It doesn't get the job done. So, and what do I mean by that? Well, you get to the climax, and there's all kinds of poltergeist activities and stuff happening. There's a cool little sequence where the crooked man comes to life out of this little toy that the kids were looking at. And the crooked man, I guess, is played by an actual ballet guy. And it looks good. It's just part of it. Maybe it's the face. It just looks kind of really bad CGI to me. But there's a nice, cool scene though where the crooked man comes to life and reminds me a lot of Freddy Krueger, and he's chasing after Patrick Wilson. That's a nice scene. And then, but then after that, it really becomes pretty weak because Lorraine finds a way into the house. Patrick Wilson is holding on to the little girl. There's a giant. There's like a piece of. There's like what looks like a spike, but it's made out of wood. It's just basically a tree that's basically turned into like a deadly spike. And he's holding on to the girl. She looks like she might fall into the spike. This is the vision that Lorraine had of her husband falling on something and dying, and the demon nun being the cause of it. So she realizes, oh, in order to defeat the demon nun, I need to remember the name. She wrote down the name. She wrote down its name in the Bible. Where's my Bible? And then she finds out that the name of the demon is Valak. So, with this information, she then goes in and into the room with the demon nun. The nun overpowers her at first and displays her across the wall and sticks her on the wall pretty much. But then all she has to do is basically say some stuff about Jesus Christ and says the demon's name, and the demon just disappears. With not really much of a fight, it just disappears into some spiritual black hole, and that's it. Might as well have just disappeared straight up its own asshole. Because honestly, if you ask me, Valak was a bitch. Valak was a total bitch, like in multiple ways. So she was a bitch because she's nasty, but she was also a bitch because she went out like a bitch. It was just, Valak, go away. Okay. it was just... It's kind of lame, I gotta admit. The first film felt like it had more going on in the climax. This is just, go away, Valak, and then Valak's like, alright, you said my name, so I guess I'll leave. And so that's anticlimactic and disappointing. But now the little girl, she's fine. Bill Wilkins isn't bothering her anymore because the demon isn't making Bill bother her. And you have the family theme from the end of the first movie plays, and Patrick Wilson gives his cross that he's held onto for most of his life to the little girl. He tells her to give it to somebody who needs it in the future. And that's pretty much, that's The Conjuring 2. That's really the film in a nutshell. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about The Conjuring 2. I liked it. I liked it. I didn't love it. I felt it was definitely a tale of two halves. If it had a more consistent first hour of the movie, I would probably like it as much as the first, but it doesn't. The first hour of the movie is a slog for me to sit through. I yawned more than a few times. That was kind of boring. The film isn't nearly as scary as the first film to me. The Demon Nun is just something from Insidious. It just wasn't. Less is more. That's The Conjuring had more practical effects. It felt like it was more grounded. This just felt like it was like go big or go home, especially in the climax, and it just wasn't as effective. It just goes to show you that less is more, even in horror films, especially in a haunted house, especially in a ghost story. And another thing, it's another ghost story. 2016, like I said, was talking about the darkness. It's like one of the worst times to be releasing a ghost movie. So it does feel like it's just kind of tired, and you've seen like hundreds of ghost movies up until this point. And yes, it's well made, it's well edited, it's well put together, but even it just doesn't leave much of an impact because it's just another ghost movie. Um, I saw it with my friend Matt. He's saying things like, "Why can't we just have more creature features or slasher films?" I agree wholeheartedly. This ghost story stuff is getting old. Can we please have another subgenre of horror in the theater to see other than another ghost story? Even It Follows, which I really enjoyed, was another ghost story. So it's like I would like to see a slasher and not a reboot and not a remake of slashers we already know. I just do something different. Enough of the fucking ghost stories. But that being said, Conjuring 2 I did like. I'd pick it up on DVD or Blu-ray someday down the road. But I definitely think it was a few steps down from the first film because it wasn't paced as well. This was too long. It was over 2 hours. I don't know why. Um, But it did have some good things about it. There was a couple moments that did kind of creep me out that I did like. The direction is great. The performances by the cast are solid, but it's definitely Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson who stand out as Ed and Lorraine Warren. And they're the heart of the film. The ending where they're dancing to Elvis, I thought was a really heartwarming moment, and I liked that. It was nice. It was another horror film that did end with a happy ending, which was nice. It was definitely nice too. But it wasn't as fresh like it was in The Conjuring because The Conjuring was, in 2013 we didn't really have a lot of horror films like that. So it just felt more fresh with The Conjuring. It doesn't feel as fresh the second time around. Um, and I probably wouldn't say it's as good the second time around either. But I still liked it. I still liked the movie. It had its fair share of fun to it, especially the last hour. It was entertaining, especially the last hour of the film. I mean, not really. I guess the last hour of the film was really entertaining. The first half was kind of it was sluggish. But regardless, I still like the film. I would probably say it's the best horror film I've seen this year, which is kind of, it's not saying much. It seems like it's kind of a weak year for horror films. This is the best one I can say that I've seen. I definitely think it was a lot better than Annabelle or The Witch, but that's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing The Conjuring 3. Just focus more on the Warrens next time around and cut down on the running time and go back to what made the first film so scary. Like, actually build suspense, not throw in jump scares, and not try to be Insidious Part 5. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about the film except it's a rate out of 5 stars. Like I said, it's above average movie, so I'd give it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I mean, that's pretty good for a horror sequel, especially a modern day horror sequel. There has not been very many modern horror sequels that I've seen lately that have been good. So I can definitely say this was at least good. It just wasn't great, if you ask me. Anyway, thank you for watching, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.